The city feels heavy. There's an invisible tension that lingers in the air, a pressure that never quite lifts. You can sense it in the way people walk, their eyes darting around, as if waiting for something to happen. On the news, it's the same story every day: protests, outcry, demands for justice. Black voices rising against police brutality, against the system that seems to fail them over and over. Reports of excessive force are filed, but they disappear into the ether. Nothing ever changes. The police force stands behind a wall of silence, and the people, well, the people get tired. But they don't stop. They can't stop. Not now. Maya Johnson doesn't stop either. She's watched these patterns for years, not just on the news, but up close. As a black woman, she knows these stories aren't just headlines, they're lived realities. But she's also part of the system. She's spent years in law enforcement, not just watching from the sidelines but working from the inside, trying to chip away at the corruption. An internal affairs agent, she's not just another officer, she's the one sent in to expose the rot. And this time, she's been sent into the belly of the beast, one of this city's most notorious precincts. The precinct where, she suspects, the officers don't just turn a blind eye to racial profiling, they embrace it. Maya's mission is clear: go undercover, gather evidence, expose the truth. But it's not as easy as it sounds. Blending into the precinct is one thing, but navigating the tightrope of being a black woman in law enforcement, that's something else entirely. It's personal. Every glance, every whispered comment, every microaggression digs a little deeper. And every time, she has to hold it together, because her job is too important. If she cracks, the whole investigation goes down with her. Officer James Daniels, though, he's a different story. Daniels walks through the precinct like he owns it. He's got the swagger of a man who knows he's untouchable. He's been on the force long enough to feel invincible. A tall, broad-shouldered white man, he embodies the stereotype of the hard-nosed cop who doesn't take crap from anyone, especially not from the minorities he patrols. Daniel sees himself as a protector of order, but his idea of order is steeped in control. He doesn't hide his disdain for the black community, and his record shows it. Complaints? Plenty of them. Accusations of excessive force, racial slurs, unnecessary searches. But none of it ever sticks. His colleagues close ranks, his superiors look the other way, and Daniels walks free. That's the culture in this precinct. There's an unspoken rule: what happens on the streets stays on the streets. You don't talk about it, you don't question it. And if you're the type of officer who does question it, well, you don't last long. Daniels knows the system is built to protect him, and he plays that system like a well-worn fiddle. His colleagues laugh at his offhand comments, his casual racism. They don't call it that, of course. To them, it's just how it is. Daniels has a way of making everything sound like it's all in good fun, even when it's not. He leans on the badge like it's a shield, a way to excuse his behavior. And no one challenges him. Not the officers who work under him, not the ones who watch from the sidelines. They know better. They know that in this department, standing up to someone like Daniels doesn't end well. Maya watches all of this, blending into the background as much as she can. It's not easy. She's not one of them, and she knows it. But she's good at what she does. She's careful, methodical, always listening, always observing. The key is not to tip her hand too early. She can't let anyone know she's internal affairs, not until she has what she needs. It's a delicate balance, staying under the radar while collecting the kind of evidence that will bring down an entire precinct. And it's not just about the precinct for her. It's personal in ways she doesn't always want to admit. Being a black woman in this line of work, there's a weight to it. She feels it every time she puts on the uniform. The uniform doesn't protect her from the racism she encounters outside, or even from the subtle, insidious kind she faces inside. It's always there, lurking. And every day, Maya feels the pressure to prove herself, not just as a cop, but as a black woman in a system that doesn't value her the way it should. Her mission isn't just about exposing a few bad cops. It's about showing the entire city, the entire system, that things can't stay the same. It's about change. And for Maya, that's worth everything. Even if it means facing people like Daniels every day. Even if it means going into the lion's den, knowing that one wrong move could end everything. Because deep down, Maya knows the stakes are higher than just this investigation. It's about dismantling a system that's built on inequality, that thrives on silence and complicity. And she's not just doing it for herself, she's doing it for everyone who's ever been on the receiving end of that system's abuse. Every black man and woman who's been pulled over, searched, humiliated. Every person who's been told their life matters less because of the color of their skin. So Maya keeps her head down, does the work, and waits. Waits for the right moment to strike. Maya grips the wheel, her fingers tense but steady. She's driving through the neighborhood slowly, her mind running through the day's work. It's late, the streets are quiet, and she's on autopilot, trying to shake off the exhaustion. The car she's driving is part of her cover, a worn-out sedan with faded paint, one that doesn't draw attention unless you're looking for trouble. She knows her mission is delicate, and she needs to keep a low profile. But she also knows she's in hostile territory. As she passes through an intersection, she catches the glint of flashing lights in her rearview mirror. She instinctively checks her speed. Perfectly legal. Her taillights are working, she made sure of that before heading out. But it's happening anyway. She knows what this is. The police cruiser pulls up behind her, lights still flashing. She exhales slowly, preparing herself mentally for what's coming. She's been trained for this, but it doesn't make the situation any less infuriating. Maya's not just another driver being pulled over. She's an undercover internal affairs agent, here to gather evidence of racial profiling and abuse. But in this moment, that doesn't protect her. She pulls over, puts the car in park, and waits. The officer approaches with a slow, swaggering stride. Maya doesn't have to see his face to know who it is. Officer James Daniels. He's exactly the kind of cop she was sent to investigate. He taps on her window with unnecessary force, and she rolls it down calmly, meeting his gaze with a level stare. His expression is already set, cocky, predatory. He knows he's in control, or at least he thinks he is. License and registration, he barks, without offering a greeting. Maya hands them over wordlessly. She doesn't need to speak yet. Daniels glances at the documents but doesn't seem interested in them. His eyes are already scanning the inside of her car, looking for something, anything, to justify what he's about to do. Your taillight's out, he says, the lie hanging in the air between them. Maya knows her car is in perfect condition, but she doesn't argue. That's not her role tonight. She's here to document the exact behavior he's exhibiting, unprovoked, racially motivated harassment. And she's recording every second of it with a hidden device. Step out of the car, Daniels orders, his tone sharpening. Maya hesitates for a fraction of a second, just long enough for him to take a step closer, as if he's daring her to resist. She slowly unbuckles her seatbelt and steps out, her movements deliberate. She's done this before, been in situations where the wrong twitch could escalate things. Daniels watches her like a hawk, as though she's hiding some kind of threat. Hands on the hood, he says, gesturing toward the car. Let's see what you're hiding. There's nothing to hide, of course. Maya has made sure of that. But this isn't about what's in the car. It's about what she represents, black skin in a white officer's line of sight. Daniels runs a hand along the edges of the car, then moves to the back, opening the trunk without asking for permission. I didn't give you consent to search, Maya says, her voice calm, but firm. She knows the law is on her side, but she also knows Daniels doesn't care. Not right now, not here. Daniels smirks, ignoring her. You people always think you can talk your way out of anything, don't you? Maya feels the sting of those words, but she doesn't react. She can't afford to. She watches him rifle through her things, papers, an empty bag, nothing out of the ordinary. But that's not the point. He's asserting control, making it clear that she has none. Daniels slams the trunk shut and circles back to face her. What are you doing in this neighborhood anyway? Doesn't seem like your kind of place. Maya's jaw tightens, but she doesn't bite. She knows this game. He wants her to push back, to give him a reason to escalate. But she's smarter than that. She meets his eyes, refusing to look away. Daniels leans in, just enough to be intimidating. You better have a good reason for being here, he sneers. Or we're gonna have a problem. Maya stays silent, but inside, she feels the anger rising. She could blow her cover right now. Flash her badge, tell him exactly who she is and why she's here. But that would end the investigation. The goal is to expose him, to let him dig his own grave. Daniel steps back, surveying her like he's weighing his next move. There's a crowd now. A few onlookers from nearby homes have gathered, watching from the sidewalk. They're quiet, their faces a mixture of fear and disgust. This is a familiar scene to them, another black person at the mercy of a cop with too much power. Get back in the car, Daniels finally says, tossing her license and registration onto the ground instead of handing them back. It's a final act of humiliation, one last reminder of who's in charge. Maya bends down to pick them up, her fingers brushing the cold pavement. She straightens up slowly, her heart pounding in her chest, but her face a mask of calm. She gets back into the car without a word, her hands shaking slightly as she closes the door. Daniels gives one last look before heading back to his cruiser, the smirk never leaving his face. To him, this was just another routine stop, another notch in his belt. He has no idea who she really is, or what she's just recorded. Maya watches him drive away in the rearview mirror, her breath finally escaping in a long, slow exhale. She's shaken, but her mission isn't over. This was just the beginning. She has what she needs, but the real work is still ahead. Maya walks into her apartment, the weight of the evening still pressing down on her. The door clicks shut behind her, but the sense of violation lingers. She stands in the middle of her living room, her heart still racing, though she hides it well. She takes a deep breath, calming her nerves, then reaches into her bag and pulls out the small recording device that had been running the entire time during the stop. She sets it on the table, staring at it for a moment before sitting down. This was supposed to be just another step in her mission. She had been trained for moments like this. She knew it would be hard, but somehow it was different when she was the target. The badge in her pocket didn't protect her from the reality of being black in a city where people like her are seen as threats. The fact that she had to endure it while doing her job makes it all the more complicated. She presses play on the recording. The sound of Officer Daniels' voice fills the room, barking orders and hurling insults like they were part of his job. She listens to herself, her responses calm and measured, even though inside she was seething. The racial slurs, the condescending tone, the abuse of power, it's all there, caught on tape. She has the evidence she needs, the hard proof to expose not just Daniels but the entire precinct if it comes to that. But listening to it again makes her stomach churn. She sits back in her chair, running a hand over her face. She's shaken, not just by the interaction itself, but by the emotional toll it's taken. It was humiliating, dehumanizing, and a painful reminder of the world she's trying to fix. A part of her wants to confront Daniels directly, to tear off the mask and show him who she really is, but she knows that would only ruin everything. She can't let him win, not yet. As she stares at the recording device, memories of her past start to surface. She thinks about her childhood, the subtle and overt racism she had to navigate even as a little girl. The times her parents had to remind her to be extra careful around the police, to never give them a reason to target her. Now, even as an officer herself, those same fears linger. The weight of being both black and a cop feels like a burden she can't put down, no matter how much she wants to. She opens her laptop, pulling up the files she's been collecting over the past few months. The evidence against Daniels is damning, but she knows this is just one part of the larger picture. There's a whole system behind him, other officers, other complaints that have been swept under the rug. Her mission is to bring them all down, but tonight's experience has shaken her confidence, if only for a moment. Still, she pushes forward. Maya starts organizing the files, making sure everything is backed up and secured. The footage from the traffic stop is critical, but she needs more. She can't rush this. Exposing corruption on this scale requires strategy, patience, and above all, restraint. Even though she wants to take down Daniels now, she knows she has to play the long game. Her phone buzzes on the table, jolting her out of her thoughts. It's Captain Rodriguez. Maya answers, her voice steady, though she feels a knot tightening in her chest. Rodriguez, she says, leaning back in her chair. How are you holding up? Rodriguez's voice is calm, but there's a hint of concern. I'm fine. I've got everything recorded. It's all there. Maya responds, glancing at the files on her screen. There's a pause on the other end. Good. Just be careful. Daniels isn't the only one we're dealing with. You know that. Maya nods, though she knows Rodriguez can't see her. I know. This is just the start. Rodriguez sighs softly. We need more before we move. Daniels is reckless, but he's not stupid. If he catches wind that we're onto him, he'll bury everything. His buddies will close ranks around him. We can't let that happen. I understand, Maya says, though the words feel heavy in her mouth. Every part of her wants to act now, to make sure Daniels pays for what he did. But Rodriguez is right. The system protects its own, and she can't afford to make a mistake. Just take care of yourself, all right? Rodriguez's voice softens. I know it's tough, but you're doing good work. Keep your head in the game. I will, Maya replies, though the weariness in her voice betrays her. When she hangs up, the apartment feels eerily quiet. Maya closes her laptop and sits there for a moment, staring at the blank screen. She knows what needs to be done, but it doesn't make it any easier. The line between her professional duty and her personal feelings is blurring, and she's not sure how much longer she can keep them separate. The traffic stop replays in her mind. Daniel's smug face, his degrading words, the way he treated her like she was less than human. And then there's the bigger picture, the systemic rot she's working to expose. She knows this isn't just about one bad cop. It's about an entire culture that allows people like Daniels to thrive, unchecked and unpunished. Maya gets up from the chair, walking to the window and looking out at the city. The lights flicker in the distance, the world outside moving on as if nothing happened. But inside, she's still carrying the weight of that encounter. She reminds herself why she's here, why she took this job in the first place. She's not just doing this for herself, she's doing it for every black person who has been targeted, harassed, and brutalized by the system. She tightens her fists at her sides. This isn't over. It's only just beginning. Maya spends the next few days immersing herself in the precinct's daily rhythm, blending in as much as possible while keeping her true purpose concealed. She watches Officer Daniels closely, noticing the way he interacts with his colleagues. They laugh off serious misconduct like it's a game. The casual racism, the jokes, and the camaraderie built on oppression, it's worse than Maya had imagined. She listens carefully, her hidden devices capturing every word. In the locker room, two officers casually talk about a recent arrest where they had to rough up a suspect, laughing at how they managed to write the report in a way that made the violence seem justified. Maya clenches her fists but doesn't react. She can't afford to let her emotions betray her mission. She continues to quietly gather evidence, knowing that every conversation she records is another piece of the puzzle falling into place. Each day, the picture becomes clearer. Daniels isn't just one bad apple. The entire system around him is complicit, and Maya sees how the corruption runs deep. Falsified reports, manipulated body cam footage, and officers covering for each other, it's all part of the culture. The weight of what she's uncovering presses down on her, but she remains focused, meticulous in her work. However, she knows the clock is ticking. The more she observes, the more she realizes how volatile this situation is becoming. Her position feels precarious, and she can sense that any wrong move could blow her cover. But she pushes forward, determined to see this through. Meanwhile, Officer Daniels begins to feel uneasy. He's been riding the high of his arrogance for so long, but something about the woman from the traffic stop lingers in his mind. He can't shake the feeling that something didn't add up. Normally, people he humiliates respond with fear or anger, but Maya had remained calm, controlled. Too calm, he thinks now. The encounter nags at him, though his ego keeps him from suspecting the full truth. He begins to pay more attention to her, watching her from across the room, replaying the events of the stop in his mind. He notices her presence around the precinct, but nothing about her behavior gives him a clear reason to act. His colleagues, sensing his growing paranoia, assure him that everything is fine. They've always had each other's backs. No one ever dares challenge them. They tell Daniels that the woman from the stop was probably just scared, and that he's overthinking it. But Daniels can't shake the feeling. His instinct, sharpened from years of working the streets, tells him something isn't right. He starts checking the department's records, quietly digging into Maya's background, though he doesn't find anything that sets off alarms. Still, the tension between them builds as he grows more suspicious, and Maya notices his increasing interest in her. She knows it's only a matter of time before he gets closer to the truth. At the same time, Marcus Reynolds, one of the few black officers in the precinct, watches everything unfold from the sidelines. Marcus is torn. He's seen the racism, the brutality, the corruption firsthand, but he's also seen what happens to officers who try to speak up. They're ostracized, driven out, or worse. He's kept his head down for years, trying to survive in a system that views him as both an outsider and a token of diversity. Marcus knows about Daniel's behavior. He's witnessed it many times, but every time, he's looked the other way, too afraid of what would happen if he confronted it. But something about Maya stirs something in him. He's never seen her before, and though she blends in with the rest of the team, Marcus senses that she's different. One day, while passing her in the hallway, he stops and initiates a quiet conversation. "Listen, I don't know who you are," Marcus begins, his voice low, making sure no one else is listening. "But I know why you're here. I've been around long enough to see what's going on." Maya pauses, her heart racing for a moment, but she keeps her face neutral. "I'm just doing my job, Marcus." "I know you are," he replies, glancing around nervously. "But you need to be careful. This place. It's a nest of vipers. They'll protect each other at all costs. You've seen how it is." Maya studies him for a moment, sensing the conflict inside him. Marcus is a good man, trapped in a broken system, but she can see he's scared. He's spent too long trying to navigate the complexities of being a black officer in a precinct that barely tolerates his presence. "I don't want to see you get caught up in this," Marcus continues. "I'm not saying I can't help you, but I've got a family. I can't lose this job." Maya nods, understanding the weight of his words. She knows Marcus has been complicit by staying silent, but she also knows how difficult it is to break free from the system. Their conversation leaves an impression on her. Marcus is a key piece of the puzzle, but she can't push him too hard. Not yet. Over the next few days, the tension within the precinct continues to rise. Daniels is on edge, watching Maya closely, but he's not sure what to do. The other officers start to notice his paranoia and joke about it, teasing him for being rattled by the woman from the traffic stop. But Daniels doesn't laugh. Something about this whole situation feels wrong, and he can't afford to ignore his instincts. Maya, on the other hand, knows that the walls are closing in. She's gathered enough evidence to make a move, but she has to be careful. The deeper she gets, the more she realizes just how dangerous the people around her are. If they suspect her true identity, they'll do everything they can to silence her. She knows the stakes have never been higher. One wrong move, and everything she's worked for will crumble. But she's not backing down. The investigation has reached a critical point, and Maya is more determined than ever to see it through to the end, no matter what it costs her. Maya knew the moment had come. She'd spent weeks gathering evidence, documenting every interaction, and capturing the corruption at the heart of the precinct. Now, it was time to face Daniels directly. She didn't need a grand gesture, just a quiet, controlled confrontation. She called Daniels in for what seemed like a routine internal review. Nothing that would raise alarms. Daniels walked into the room, his usual smug demeanor intact. He glanced around, not sensing anything unusual. Maya, sitting across from him, kept her expression neutral, professional. She was ready. Without wasting time, she began to speak. "I'm not who you think I am." Maya started, her tone calm but carrying weight. Daniels furrowed his brow, confused but not yet alarmed. "I'm with Internal Affairs," she continued. The words hit Daniels like a blow. His smug smile faltered, replaced with a flicker of panic. He blinked, trying to process what she just said. "I've been investigating this precinct for weeks, Daniels. And I have everything I need." Maya opened her folder and slid photos and transcripts toward him. Footage of the traffic stop played on a small screen, showing Daniels berating Maya, his racist remarks clear as day. His face drained of color as he saw himself on camera, caught red-handed. "You set me up?" Daniels blurted out, his voice rising in disbelief. "This is a setup." "No," Maya replied evenly. "This is the truth." Daniels tried to regain his composure, straightening in his chair, his arrogance resurfacing in flashes. "You don't understand what it's like out there. We're just trying to keep order. These people, they don't respect." "Stop." Maya's voice cut through his excuses with cold precision. "You can't justify what you've done." "Not this time." Daniel's panic was palpable now. His mind raced, searching for a way out. "Look, we can fix this. You don't have to do this. You know how things work around here. We protect each other." He leaned forward, lowering his voice, as if they were negotiating. But Maya wasn't negotiating. "I already sent everything to Internal Affairs. It's over, Daniels." Daniels' confidence shattered. He slumped back in his chair, fear creeping into his eyes. He realized he was alone, exposed. For the first time, the power he wielded over others was gone. He was powerless, trapped in the very system he had thought would protect him. "You can't do this to me," Daniels muttered, his voice shaky now. "I've been here for years. I've got people." "It's already done," Maya interrupted, not letting him finish. She stood up, looking down at him with cold resolve. "You're going to be held accountable." Daniels glanced toward the door, as if hoping someone would come to his rescue. But no one would. His colleagues, who had always shielded him before, were nowhere to be found. Maya had made sure of that. The evidence was secure, and Daniels had no escape. In the days that followed, the fallout was swift. Daniels was arrested, along with several other officers implicated in the corruption. The evidence Maya had gathered was undeniable, and the department could no longer ignore the truth. The media caught wind of the story, and public outrage grew. Protests erupted again, but this time, they were fueled by a sense of vindication. The system had finally been forced to confront its own failures. For Marcus, Maya's courage sparked something deep within him. He had spent too long staying silent, too afraid to speak out. But now, with Daniels gone and the corruption exposed, he realized he couldn't stand on the sidelines any longer. He came forward, offering to testify about what he'd witnessed. His testimony added weight to the investigation, pushing for more reforms within the department. Maya didn't take pleasure in the downfall of Daniels and the other officers. She wasn't in this for revenge, she was in it for justice. The work wasn't over just because a few bad officers had been removed. She knew the system needed deep, systemic change, far beyond this one precinct. But it was a start. And that was something. In the days following the arrests, a city council meeting was held to address the issue. Maya was invited, and though she didn't seek recognition, her role in bringing the truth to light couldn't be ignored. As she stood in the back of the room, watching the council members discuss police reforms and accountability, she felt a quiet sense of accomplishment. But Maya knew better than anyone that one investigation wouldn't fix everything. The system was still deeply flawed, and there were many more like Daniels, hidden behind the badge. Real change would take time, perseverance, and the continued fight for justice. As the meeting adjourned and people began to leave, Maya lingered for a moment, her thoughts turning to the road ahead. She had won this battle, but there would be more to come. There always were. Still, she was ready. For her, the fight wasn't just a job, it was personal. With that, Maya walked out of the council chamber, the weight of her mission heavy on her shoulders but her resolve stronger than ever. She knew there were more walls to break down, more truth to uncover. And she would be there, on the front lines, unmasking the corruption wherever it hid. Because the fight for justice never truly ended.